Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we have a podcast about goodbyes. For one thing, we're going to be talking about What We Do in the Shadow, which came to an end. We're going to be talking about its final season, and it's bittersweet, but we're going to go over that. And for another thing, the two of us are going to be gone from your ears for 3 weeks. So we're taking a break for Christmas and New Year, so we got to say goodbye. And we also have to say goodbye to 2024. So this is going to be our goodbye podcast of 2024, I guess.
Goodbye, 2024.
Yep, this is our last one that'll be out in this year. So with that said, let's get started with our On the Horizon segment. On the Horizon. On the Horizon is where we talk about what comes up in the next week or so, but we're going to be talking about the next 3 weeks because that's how long we're going to be gone for. So that's what's going to be coming up in the time that we're gone. We're giving you a heads up on all of the good stuff you need to keep your eye out for. First up, What If Season 3 is coming on Sunday, December 22nd to Disney+. But I find myself questioning, what if I didn't care about What If anymore? Next up, we have Doctor Who, Joy to the World. This is the Christmas special. There's a Doctor Who Christmas special pretty much every year, except for random times that they're on hiatus for like a year or two or something. But there's one this year, and that's coming on Wednesday, December 25th, Christmas Day on Disney+. Also coming on Christmas Day, Nosferatu, coming to theaters on Disney+. So I'm excited about that one. I'm going to try to I have a friend that's coming in from out of town, and that's like a perfect activity for us to do, is to go see Nosferatu.
Oh, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah. And then the very next day, the day after Christmas, on Boxing Day, Squid Game Season 2 drops on Netflix. I know you're looking forward to that one.
Mm-hmm.
Then on January 1st, Wednesday, January 1st on Netflix, Missing You comes. This is a limited series based on a Harlan Coben adaptation, and it stars Richard Armitage from Hannibal, the last season of Hannibal, and also the Hobbit movies. Cunk on Life is coming on Thursday, January 2nd to Netflix. They dropped the trailer for this, but we cut it because we just don't have enough time to cover everything. But Cunk on Life is absolutely hilarious. If you haven't seen any of the Cunk on stuff, check that out. I think there's Cunk on Earth is the one that's on Netflix right now. You can check that out. It's absolutely hilarious. Just trust me on that. Going Dutch. This is a military comedy starring Dennis Leary and Danny Pudi from Community, as well as Catherine Tate from Doctor Who. This is coming on Thursday, January 2nd to Fox. So that answers the debate. Is network TV still actually making anything? Here you go. They still exist. Lockerbie, A Search for Truth. This is a limited series about the 1988 Pan Am flight bombing starring Colin Firth. This is coming on Thursday, January 2nd to Peacock. Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Fowl is a movie, an animated movie coming to Netflix on Friday, January 3rd. The Mayfair Witches returns on AMC on Sunday, January 5th. The 82nd Annual Golden Globe Awards is also going to be airing on Sunday, January 5th on CBS and Paramount+. E's memoir, The Oath in Felgana, I think is how it's pronounced, is coming on Tuesday, January 7th to PS4, PS5, and Switch. American Primeval, this is a limited series. It's a Western. We talked about it last week. This is the one I compared to Horizon, which is Kevin Costner's movie series that ended up turning into just a single movie because it did so poorly. But American Primeval is coming on Thursday, January 9th to Netflix, and it's a limited series. I thought it was a movie from the trailer. It looks like a movie, but it's a limited series apparently.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And Goosebumps drops on Friday, January 10th on Hulu and Disney+. That is our On the Horizon segment, and now we're going to move on to On Beat. On Beat. we've got a few news stories to go over. We're going to talk about a little bit coming up from the Game Awards that aired, and then we're going to go into some trailers. A lot of trailers this week, and we had to narrow it down to 5, and it was a little heartbreaking, but we had to do it because we just don't have time to cover everything. But we're going to start off our news segment with Haley Atwell reprising her role as Agent Carter in Avengers Doomsday, and feasibly Secret Wars as well.
Yeah, which, I mean, yeah, not surprised. That's cool. I like Haley Atwell. I like Agent Carter. This is not Captain Carter from, like, What If and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
I mean, but who knows? It actually could be.
Well,
we don't really know the details.
Agent Carter and Captain Carter are, like, different characters, so, like,
yeah.
Like, I figured, like, they'd be more specific.
It could be both. There could be surprises yet to come, you know? We don't know.
Oh, yeah, we don't know, like, everything that's going on in this movie. Just, like, this isn't an announcement of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's the announcement of Agent Carter. We already knew that Chris Evans was returning.
Yes.
And so,
That's
yeah,
been
it
reported.
makes sense. The two of them are going to have probably some screen time together in Avengers Doomsday.
Oh, absolutely.
Our next news story is that there is a Malcolm in the Middle revival in the works. And so far they have signed on Bryan Cranston, Frankie Muniz, and Jane, I can't remember her last name, who played her mom.
I know it, but I can't pronounce it.
Starts with a K, I think.
Cause it's
Karzima Gaginskiku?
I don't know. I can't, yeah, I'm not gonna try. It's just, yeah.
But basically
It's
they
just
got
like-
Malcolm, Hal, and Lois.
Yes. Hopefully they get a few more people in there, cause like I can't imagine, it's Malcolm in the middle, not like Malcolm and his parents. So like, they need his brothers there.
Well, you got Francis, the oldest brother. He's fallen out a little bit with Hollywood because of his support for his brother, who's a rapist.
Right, oh yeah.
Then you have Malcolm's other two brothers, who I think have both left the business.
Dewey and Reese. Oh really? Oh
The
yeah.
actors, I think, have both left the business. I know for sure Dewey has. I'm not sure about Reese, but, you know, they could show up for a cameo or something, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
If it takes
Interesting
place
thing with
in
this,
our modern times, they could just have them on like a Zoom call or something.
Apparently, like, Bryan Cranston has been, like, really supportive of Frankie Muniz over the years.
I've heard
It's,
that.
like, been touch, so, like, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting revival. Who knows? I mean, they're doing tons of revivals now. Some of them work, some of them don't, so we don't know how that's going to work out, but they got the three most important people.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Next up, we're going to start going into the Game Awards. So we're going to talk about 10 or so of the announcements that were made, and then we're also going to talk about what won Game of the Year. That's it. We're not going to cover every award that was won and every announcement that was made.
We'll be here all night if we did that.
Yeah, so we're just going to do 10 of the kind of either the ones that we care the most about or that are just important, whether we care about them or not, you know? And then we're going to cover Game of the Year. That's it. So we're going to start off where the Game Awards started off, which I believe was the very first announcement made and the very first trailer shown, and that was Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, which is being done by the developers of Blasphemous, which is a very highly rated Metroidvania series.
Yeah, from what I understand, very highly rated 2D Metroidvania Souls-like game, which is
It's about kind of
completely
like
different.
Catholic traditions and stuff like that.
Completely different genre than Ninja Gaiden. But like this
I don't
looked
know if
really
this is
slick.
the Metroidvania. I think this is just a 2D action game.
Oh yeah, it should be. If it's Ninja Gaiden, it should be an action game.
I mean, you say
Yeah.
that, but I could go for a Ninja Gaiden Metroidvania.
What's interesting is, speaking of that, is like, if you're interested in that, like, I would recommend The Messenger.
That's the one that goes through the different visual styles, right? Like it starts off like
Yes.
8-bit and then goes like 16-bit.
Yes, and what's also interesting about that is the 8-bit, like, is the beginning of the game. Like, the first half of the game is 8-bit, and it's a linear, action game in the same vein as, like, Ninja Gaiden and stuff like that. And then when you get to the second half of the game, the graphics turn 16-bit, and it becomes a Metroidvania, like, explore and unlock areas.
Wasn't there like another
game.
like pretty highly acclaimed ninja game fairly recently that was like also like retro style, but it was like your character was like going through some kind of traumatic experience or something and it was affecting his sense of reality or...
If there is, I can't think of what that
can't remember what it
is.
was called. I think it had ninja in the title. It was like ninja something and it's like
Interesting.
he was going to therapy or something. I don't know.
Huh.
But yeah, this is the OG ninja game returning to 2D, so it looks very cool. Next up, we're going to talk about Elden Ring Night Rain, which is not a DLC. This is a standalone title.
Yes, this is a standalone title, and I was reading this is also not a live service game. All the content is included in the game when you buy it. There's no DLC to purchase. There's no microtransactions to purchase.
Isn't it supposed to be a little like roguelike-esque or something?
Yes, it is roguelike. So this is interesting. So this is by a new director, a first-time director in From Software. This is not being directed by Miyazaki, who worked as like an animator.
But the director, I believe, he worked on Elden Ring too, but he was in a different capacity.
Yeah.
And this is his first time directing.
Yeah, he worked on Elden Ring, and this is his first time directing. And he basically, like, there's a big interview with IGN where I'm getting all this information from. He basically said, he wanted to, like, make an online co-op game from Soft, and the reason, like, it's Elden Ring is just because...
They wanted to reuse the assets, or...?
It was easier to, like, to make the game, like, reusing existing assets, instead of making, like, a bunch of new assets from scratch. And, I mean, marketing probably likes that, too, because they can market a new Elden Ring game.
By far the most successful game that the studio's made, yeah.
Yeah, Elden Ring actually has outsold by itself the entirety of, like, the Dark Souls trilogy.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
And that includes all, like, the remasters and remakes and other things, yeah.
Yeah, combined.
Yeah.
Which is insane. But this isn't, like, a traditional Elden Ring game or a Souls-like game. So the conceit here is that you go in this with 2 other people, and basically you got 3 days to survive and take out, like, the final boss at the end of the day. So, like, at the end of, like, each night, there's a boss you fight, and then at the end of the 3rd night, there's, like, an ultimate boss. Mm-hmm. And then you get, like, rewards and stuff, and you level up your characters, and you do, like, another 3-day cycle after that.
Does it have, like, a time travel aspect, like Majora's Mask or something? Because that's what it's making me think of when you talk about a 3-day cycle or something.
There isn't, like, there isn't a time travel aspect. It's, like, time passes normally, and yeah, there's no way to, like, reverse time or fast forward time or anything, like in Majora's Mask. And so what happens is you start out, the only map in the game is Limgrave. You start out in Limgrave, and what you gotta do, like, from the start is you gotta explore, you fight enemy mobs, you level up your character, get good equipment, and you have to do this within enough time where by the time the boss appears that you're, like, powered up enough to fight the boss.
Kind of a resource game, then. It's about, like, building up your resources in preparing for your actual showdown with the final boss.
Oh yeah. And as you're doing this, as the days go on, the world that you're in, like Limgrave, it's being, like, slowly consumed. So, like, your play area is going to shrink and get smaller, and you're going to be cut off access to stuff.
So it's almost like there's a little bit of there is a little bit of Majora's Mask in there, like on a conceptual level almost.
Right.
Even if there's no, like, loop going on. And then it also is kind of reminding me a little bit of the Hunger Games. Have you seen any of the Hunger Games movies?
I've seen the first one.
But you know, like, how they keep cutting down the quadrants, like, that the players are allowed in to try to force them against each other?
Yes.
That's kind of reminding me of that, you know? And then it's also giving me a little bit of, there's something else I was thinking of that just slipped my mind. But yeah, I'm picking up, like, a lot of, like, little elements and stuff from this, of different things. I can see some of what are probably some of the inspirations.
Yeah, and it's roguelike in the fact that for every cycle, the map is randomly generated, so all the locations, key items, you know, enemy mobs and stuff aren't going to be in the same location every playthrough. Mm-hmm. It's going to be randomized, like, every cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Next up, we got a pair of games from Ryuga Gotoko
Ryuga Gotoku Studios. Which is the
Yakuza team, yes. They showed 2 trailers back to back. First, they showed a trailer for Virtua Fighter. This wasn't for a game. This is a trailer for an event that they ended up holding, I think, the next day, where they were showing off a bunch of stuff. Like, they literally called it a direct, I believe. It was like Virtua Fighter Direct. And they had, like, a whole event just kind of talking about, you know, Virtua Fighter as a franchise.
Well, this was
multiple games being made.
Well, this was the official teaser trailer announcement for Virtua Fighter 6.
Yeah. I mean, the trailer that was at the Game Awards was for the Direct itself, but they were showing stuff from 6, and then the event at 6, I think they showed Virtua Fighter 6. They also showed, like, a new update for 5, I think, which hasn't been around for a long time. And then they also, like, were talking about other events and stuff that were going to happen to celebrate Virtua Fighter or whatever.
Oh, yeah. So Virtua Fighter is coming back in a big way, which I'd say, it's about time. I've been railing on this for, like, a long time. Capcom, like, successfully revived Street Fighter with Street Fighter 4 back in the 360 days. Tekken has been steadily going. Tekken never left. They're on Tekken 8. Warner Brothers is still having massive success with Mortal Kombat, and it just leaves you wondering, why isn't Sega doing Virtua Fighter? Like, why are they dropping the ball on that? You know, they have one of the most recognizable fighting game brands, and they're doing nothing with it. And they're just leaving the market to everybody else.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. And it's funny because I saw the producer and director of Tekken, Katsuhiro Harada, commented on the Virtua Fighter trailer, and he tweeted, "More than 10 years late, but we've been waiting for you. Now get in the ring and fight."
Next up from the same studio, we got a trailer for what's called Project Century. I'm sure at some point it's going to have a Yakuza or Like a Dragon somewhere in the title of that.
Probably. Either that or this is going to remain a new IP, which is interesting. From gameplay-wise, this looks like more like classic Yakuza than like the recent Like a Dragon games.
It's less goofy and less turn-based, it seems like, from the trailer. But the trailer was like a cinematic trailer, so we don't really know too much about that.
Right, yeah, we don't know too much about this, except this is a period piece taking place in Japan in the early 1900s.
I think this might be like a replacement for Judgment.
This might be, yeah.
Where Judgment was kind of like, when they took Yakuza in a direction of being turn-based, then they made the Judgment franchise, which was like kind of in the same world, but followed like a police officer character, and it kind of was more traditional Yakuza-style gameplay.
Yeah, it was going to retain the traditional Yakuza gameplay, while like a Dragon went in a more like RPG direction.
Yeah, and then, but I think that's done now.
Yeah.
And so,
because there has been like
kind of
any news
saying we want to continue traditional Yakuza with something else.
Yeah, that's what I think this might be, yeah.
Next up, we got a trailer for Shadow Labyrinth. This is a Metroidvania featuring Pac-Man. Not starring Pac-Man, but featuring Pac-Man.
Featuring Pac-Man. If you were clued in, you might have heard of like a little Amazon show called Secret Level, where they had a Pac-Man episode, which was this, you know, and this was weird, and like, it was weird, and like, nobody knew what to make of it. And then they announced this game, and of course, that was a tie-in for this game.
So yeah, just kind of an interesting switch up on Pac-Man. You know, the game's not called Pac-Man Shadow Labyrinth, it's just called Shadow Labyrinth.
Right, you are not playing directly as Pac-Man, you're playing as a different character, but he has like a Pac-Man like orb, like or drone that like follows him and helps him, and has like a lot of like Pac-Man iconography in it as well.
Like eating the little dots and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes, if it ends up being like a critically acclaimed game or if it ends up being like hated.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Most even seen positive attention on it.
It does look good. It does look like a pretty good Metroidvania style game.
Next up, we're going to be talking about Intergalactic, the Heretic Prophet. This is the new game from Naughty Dog.
Yes, this was crazy. They ended the show on this reveal, and at first, like, I didn't know what to make of it. First, I was, like, struck by the very obvious 80s influence, right? All the stuff like this retro-futuristic 80s thing, kind of like Back to the Future 2.
This is definitely a PlayStation 5 Pro or higher spec game.
Yeah.
Because what they showed in there had a shitload of ray tracing going on. Some pretty advanced ray tracing stuff too. But yeah, I mean, this is Naughty Dog. This is the team that did The Last of Us and Uncharted. And this is their new game.
Yep. And I think we were waiting to see what their first full-on original PlayStation 5 game was going to be, because at this point they just like released like remasters, you know, of like their previous games. And so yeah, I mean, it looks amazing. I love futuristic space sci-fi, and it's an action game, so like I'm down for it.
There's a little bit of like Guardians in this, in the sense that it's got this kind of like retro stuff going on, but it's futuristic.
Yes. There's also a lot of branding too, like a lot of known brands.
Yeah, her spaceship is made by Porsche.
Yeah.
You know?
She's got like a Sony like music system.
Oh yeah, that's the obvious one, because it is Sony.
Yeah, when I saw like Sony, I said, this is a PlayStation game. I was like, that was the tell.
Yeah, but it looks pretty interesting. There's been some like controversy about it that I'm not going to talk about because it's really stupid.
Well, yeah, it's stupid. It's not even worth bringing up. It's just people being sexist and racist at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, screw those people.
If you hear some negativity on it, don't take it at face value. If you're interested, look into it, but it's pretty fucking stupid.
Yes.
And you'll see that, which is unfortunate.
Also, like, the same stupid controversy has infected the discourse of our next game.
Witcher 4.
Yeah, which looks amazing. It's funny because We always see like cinematics, obviously, but it looks like it follows from like the best ending of The Witcher 3, which is the best ending is Ciri becomes a Witcher.
Mm-hmm.
And it follows that. So we are following Ciri as a Witcher in The Witcher 4.
I like the way that this
incredible.
trailer is like a self-contained story.
Yes.
That's like a very like CD Projekt Red thing to do. And CD Projekt Red remains probably the best storytellers in video game right now. You know, when it comes to actual like writing stories and side quests and those things, they're probably the best at it.
Oh yeah, they're really good at it. And it's funny because I say like the same controversy because there's a lot of people upset that, like this isn't following Geralt like the other games, this is following Ciri.
And then people saying Ciri doesn't look as good and they're upset that they can't masturbate to her now.
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
This is a lot of like Tucker Carlson mad about the green M&M not being sexy anymore type of stuff.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of people telling on themselves, like a lot of people like saying, this is just DEI, they made Ciri a Witcher. Like this isn't like in line with the other games.
As if that wasn't like the plot of the entire game franchise was about him like raising her up to be a Witcher.
Right, yeah, exactly. If that wasn't like the best ending of Witcher 3. I saw like people say that in like, you didn't play Witcher 3, did you?
Yeah.
But no, it looks amazing. I'm hyped for it.
Yeah, definitely. Looks good.
And the next two,
one thing I also wanted to bring up about Witcher 4 is that there were a few like interesting little bits of information we got in text during trailers. One of them we're going to talk about next, or not next, but in 2 games after this we're going to talk about. And the other one was in this trailer for Witcher 4. There was a little bit of text that I think went under a lot of people's radar that said that the game was running on a yet to be disclosed NVIDIA card.
Yes.
So that's kind of like a little interesting thing I think a lot of people missed. They didn't notice that.
I saw that. I mean, disclosed. The only thing it could be is the upcoming NVIDIA 50 series cards.
Yeah.
Which we know are coming probably next year. I believe NVIDIA is going to pull the curtain back on those like at CES. At least some of them.
We haven't seen anything on those cards yet though. We haven't heard anything about any games running on those cards or any of the new features that are going to be on it. So this is basically like the first concrete thing related to those cards that's come out. Everything else besides that's been rumors.
So hopefully what's not going to happen with The Witcher 4, hopefully we're not going to have a repeat of the Cyberpunk situation where they spec'd Cyberpunk for like a very high-end PC and then tried to release it on the PS4 and Xbox One at the same time as like the new systems and just ended up releasing like a poorly running mess. Like I hope they don't repeat that mistake with this by like speccing this for too high and then trying to force it to run on systems it can't run on.
Well, there's 2 interesting points that can come up from that. One is that for the first time, CD Projekt Red, this is the first CD Projekt Red game that's not running on their own internal engine. It's running on Unreal Engine.
Right.
Which means it's a lot more scalable. So that's like
true.
The first thing. The second thing is that they completely restructured the company and made it so that they had everything kind of segmented where like graphic designers that were working with lighting were in one room and people that were working on character models were in another room. They were like on separate teams, working communicatively on a project, but like in separate teams that weren't associated. And now they've kind of put them together and said, okay, if you're working on this scene, whether it be the lighting, whatever, you're all in on this together. And that apparently has made them a bit more efficient. So that's good news as well in regards to that. So hopefully the scalability of Unreal Engine, the lessons learned about releasing too early from Cyberpunk, and the restructuring all together combined is going to mean a better result. But it's also worth noting that CD Projekt Red's games have always kind of launched incomplete. It wasn't just Cyberpunk. Witcher 3 also launched kind of incomplete as well.
Right.
So I'm sure there's going to be some of that, but it's hopefully not going to be a huge disaster in the way that the Cyberpunk launch was, which by the way, one of my favorite games.
Right. Oh yeah.
Even as much of a disaster as it was, even in that moment, it was one of my favorite games. So just because the story is so good and the world is so good. But we're going to move on now to Onimusha. This was a surprise.
Yeah, no, this was a shock that came out. Yeah, Capcom's reviving Onimusha as the next gen action game. Looks fantastic. Looks amazing. I wasn't expecting that.
Do you think they're going to stick to the kind of the old RE style? Do you think they're going to adapt and make it kind of, because Onimusha was like a Resident Evil like?
Yes.
And do you think they're gonna continue to be a Resident Evil like? Do you think that if they are gonna continue to be a Resident Evil like, that it's gonna be more like a Resident Evil 4 style like, or if it's going to be more along the lines of like where Resident Evil is now. Or do you think they're going to go in a completely different direction and maybe go more like Souls-like with it?
I think they're going to go in a different direction and reinvent it as more of like an action game and not like an RE-like.
Mm-hmm. Do you think they're going to go like in that Dark Souls action direction or more like
I don't know if they're going to.
I
think it's going to be more akin to Devil May Cry than Dark Souls. I don't see like Capcom trying to do like a Souls-like.
Mm-hmm.
I think the closest thing they got to that is like Dragon's Dogma, but like I don't see that.
And my last question, is Jean Reno attached?
Right. Hopefully.
But,
Chris Pratt is attached.
Chris Pratt will be voicing a talking dog.
Yes, exactly.
In Onimusha. Speaking of Capcom.
Capcom had one more surprise.
The biggest surprise of the show, the thing that kind of blew everyone's mind. Not just the game, but like I mentioned with Witcher 4, where there was a little bit of text that gave us additional information in the trailer.
Is a very, very interesting story behind this one.
So yeah, go into it. I'll let you first say the game and then go into it.
It's Okami. I was blown away. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, what? And then I'm like, okay, they're doing Okami. Is Hideki Kamiya like involved in any way with this? And then they said, oh, he's directing it. I'm like, what? And then they said like his new studio Clovers. I'm like, Clovers? Like Clover's back? It's not Clover's.
Plural.
It's Clovers. Yeah. I was like, what is happening all of a sudden?
Yeah.
And yeah.
There's been a lot now going around about, what happened at Platinum Games, because there's been a mass exodus happening at Platinum.
Yeah, there's a mass exodus happening at Platinum. And it's really interesting because we've known for like about a year or so. Hideki Kamiya left Platinum Games. There was no details around that, no reason why. So all we had left was to speculate. And that left the project Hideki Kamiya was directing at Platinum Games, Project GG. That left that in limbo. I believe that is canceled. I don't believe Platinum has ever confirmed its cancellation. But Hideki Kamiya has if it's happening, it's happening without him.
I believe Kamiya mentioned that he wanted to do Project GG, and he didn't mention anything beyond that, which seems to imply that they were canceling it before he left.
So
and that might have been part of his impetus for leaving.
So that's not actually what happened. So Kamiya actually recently sat down with Famitsu, I believe, and gave a pretty in-depth and candid interview about why he left Platinum Games, the foundation of Clover Studio and stuff, and he was really candid with what happened with Platinum Games, and he said basically it's the Platinum Games president and CEO Inaba drove him away. He basically said if he stayed at Platinum Games, he felt his creativity would die if he stayed with Platinum.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to Project GG, he said Project GG was going in a direction that he wasn't satisfied with or agreed with, and he felt like he couldn't in good conscience release a game with his name attached to it that he did not believe in.
GG is live service confirmed.
Yes, that's the implication that, Inaba was pushing live service elements in that game. It's not confirmed.
They didn't learn from Babylon's Fall.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and that's the reason Kamiya left, because I think he was pushing to make live service games, and Kamiya doesn't want to make live service games, so he left. He confirmed, other stuff in Platinum Games after he left, contacted him and expressed interest in joining him at Clover's, which they did. There's rumors going around that other people have left Platinum Games, including the director of Astral Chain.
I've heard that. I've heard some of the people involved in Bayonetta 3 as well.
Yeah.
But Astral Chain is the one I definitely heard, the director of Astral Chain has apparently left as well.
Yeah, so crazy stuff. So apparently Platinum Games is just imploding at this point, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of enthusiasm behind Clover's, especially Kamiya said he doesn't plan on Clover's being its own independent development studio. They're going to have 70 employees max or something, and basically they're going to partner with other publishers or studios to make games. And
so they're going to rove. They're not going to be under a banner like Capcom.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're not owned by Capcom or
They're going to do what Platinum was originally going to do.
Yes.
Well,
yeah,
Platinum's
exactly.
been moving towards self-publication recently, but...
Yeah, they're going to rove. So for Okami, the new Okami, they're partnering with Capcom.
Mm-hmm. The cool thing about this is if they're partnering with Capcom, that brings up possibilities.
Yes.
Could we get a new Beautiful Joe, for example? That would be amazing, you know?
Right. Oh, yeah, that would be amazing, yeah.
Could we see, like, Kamiya's involved with the new Devil May Cry or something?
Right, yeah.
It opens up possibilities.
Yeah, it opens up a lot of possibilities. It's exciting. A lot about this announcement, besides the game itself, has been, like, very exciting. Hideki Kamiya, like, I made no secret, is one of my favorite game creators. He always makes these fantastic games, from Resident Evil 2 to Bayonetta. He's had, like, a really fascinating career, and I'm really interested to see what he does with the new Okami and, like, with his new studio.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that was the kind of the big announcement of the Game Awards. But we have one category that we're going to talk about. We're not going to go over all the winners and losers and stuff of the night, but we're going to talk about Game of the Year. And this time, the Game of the Year went to a complete fraud who didn't deserve it. No, just kidding. This year's Game of the Year went to Astrobot.
And you know what? I'm shocked, because for me, like, I know it's a game of the highest quality, like, but, like, I'm also, like, a weird person who still, like, loves platformers in the year 2024. Platformers are not a well-loved genre anymore. They're kind of like the redheaded stepchild genre of the industry now, because they're not cinematic. They don't have, like, these deep, dramatic storylines. That's like the stuff game critics and stuff, like, really eat up now. They're mostly, like, these goofy romps. And
besides Astrobot, there's basically only been one company making platformers.
Yeah, which is Nintendo.
Or like, as in the Game Awards is represented as the company who shall not be named.
Right. Nintendo didn't do so hot this year's Game Awards, unfortunately. But
they lost the Nintendo category.
They lost the Nintendo category to Astrobot. But, like, I mean, I have to give credit to Sony. Like, I've played, like, a lot of platformers, and for me, like, anybody who knows me knows I'm a Mario stan. I'm biased towards Mario. It's my favorite gaming franchise of all of them, just because it is always one of the most consistently high quality games. For platformers, it's the gold standard. And I played a lot of
so that our audience doesn't get confused, Will's talking about the Mario Batali cooking game franchise.
Yeah. The Mario Batali game. Mario is the gold standard, okay? Like, and a lot of stuff, like, is fantastic. It's great. It comes close. Like, I love a good Donkey Kong. I love a good Kirby. You know, there's a lot of games I love, but for me, they don't just quite get there to, like, that gold standard. And Astrobot does. It hits those high notes. It's crazy. I didn't think I'd ever see it, especially from, like, a non-Nintendo studio, but man, they nailed it.
It kind of almost feels like, I mean, I haven't played it, but from what I've seen of it, it kind of has, like, a feeling of being like if Mario was done by Sakurai. Because it's got kind of that, like, that museum aspect to it.
Yeah, that museum aspect. Yeah, that celebration of its history, you know, like, its heritage that, like, Sakurai, like, infused into Smash Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting, yeah. And it does that. And it does it so wonderful, too. Like, yeah, like, if you're a fan of PlayStation, and even if you're not, like, specifically PlayStation, there's a lot of third-party franchises from third-party games that have had a presence on PlayStation over the years. And with PlayStation being, like, so big as it is, that's pretty much like every third-party franchise, let's face it. There's a lot of cool stuff in there for, like, fans of other franchises. There's Castlevania bots based on Richter and, like, Alucard you can find. Lots of Easter eggs for all kinds of game series. But it's incredibly charming. The graphics are colorful and great. The worlds are creatively designed. The boss battles are creatively designed. The platforming is really tight. You know, it's got that cadence where it goes from, like, very simple to, like, very challenging, like that Mario does really well. This also does it, like, really well. They just nail it. To me, I mean, is it my best game of 2024? We're going to have to wait till a later podcast to find out. But, you know, it's a strong contender.
And then that brings us to an end of the Game Awards, and we've got some trailers to go over. And we're going to be starting things off with Ubel Blatt, which is a new anime. It's coming to Amazon Prime, I believe. And it's got an interesting story. This is based off a fairly famous manga, and it's basically, it follows in that kind of anime trope of there's a bunch of heroes that need to face off against the Demon King and save the world kind of thing. And that's very tied into like isekai anime usually. This is not isekai though. But the characters in this, there's 14 heroes and they're going to fight the Demon King, save the world, whatever, you know. That's kind of the basic setup. But what ends up happening is that I think it's 3 or 4 of them end up dying along the way. And then after that, 7 of them like turn tail and run. They're like, we're not going to die for this. We're leaving. And so that leaves the other 3 or 4 remaining heroes alone to do it. And miraculously, they end up defeating the Demon King, saving the world. But then on their way back, weakened from their encounter, they're ambushed by the 7 that ran away and slaughtered. The 7 then took credit as being the heroes that saved the day and became these kind of like folk heroes. Not only that, but they spread rumors that the other ones that had died had turned traitor. So the 7 heroes, in quotation marks, are taking credit for what they ran away from, and they slaughtered the remaining heroes that actually saved the day, but one of them survived. And so this is an anime about revenge. But unfortunately, the hero that survived that helped take out the threat to the world is now labeled as a traitor that's been killed. And the people that he wants revenge on are seen as the world's greatest heroes. So kind of an interesting little take on that kind of facing off against the Demon Lord kind of trope
that
anime has. And it's a gorgeous looking project too, like really detailed animation, looks really cool. Next up, we got a trailer for Death of a Unicorn. This is the next movie from A24, starring Jenna Ortega and Paul Rudd. So it's about Wednesday Addams meeting Ant-Man.
Yes. This is a really whacked out thing. This is Jenna Ortega and Paul Rudd. They run over a unicorn, apparently, and kill it, and then they take it to, like, I guess where they're going, to, like, where the mansion of this, like, rich inventor or whatever. I have no idea. And basically, they start experimenting on the unicorn body, and they find out it has all kinds of magical properties, like it could cure cancer and do all this stuff. And, you know, everybody's, like, got dollar signs in their eyes over, like, finding, like, this
how they can exploit it,
how they can exploit it. And while they're doing that, the unicorn's angry mother apparently shows up and is on a murderous rampage.
Yeah.
And it's just completely whacked out. It looks like a fantastic, like, dark comedy, you know?
Mm-hmm. Dark comedy with horror elements.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Which is par for the course for A24.
Yes.
Next up, we got a trailer for Novocaine, starring Huey from The Boys.
Yeah.
Novocaine is his superhero name because he feels no pain. He's got a medical condition that means he can't feel pain.
Yeah, this is a John Wick style action film, except with, like, the main character can't feel any pain.
Yeah. He's not some badass. He just happens to not be able to feel pain.
Yeah, exactly.
He's actually kind of incompetent, but he kind of is able to make it through because he doesn't feel pain.
Right, yes. So he's able to, like, overpower the bad guys simply by being able to just take punishment unharmed.
Mm-hmm. Well, not unharmed, but
not unharmed,
feeling of it.
Right.
Because he doesn't feel pain. That's, I think, a big part of the movie is that he's still taking damage, you know? He's just, it's not hurting him.
Right. There's this funny scene in the film where the guy tied him up and they're trying to torture him. And he's not feeling it. He's like, oh, yeah, ow, oh no, oh god. Yeah.
This one hurts the worst.
This one hurts the worst, yeah.
You know, one where his friend is like throwing him a knife and it goes through his hand.
Yes.
Yeah. Just looks like a really fun action movie with like, you know, playing on a medical condition. And a real medical condition, by the way. But yeah, I like it where there's the part where somebody from his past recognizes him and is like, oh shit, it's Novocaine. We all thought you'd be dead.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Hey guys, it's Novocaine. He's still alive.
It looks like a fun movie.
Yeah. Then we got a trailer for Karate Kid Legends. So this is the Karate Kid movie that brings together Ralph Macchio's character of Daniel-san and Jackie Chan's character of, I never saw that one, so I don't know his character's name. Mr. Han or something like that. From the Karate Kid remake that was with Jackie Chan and Will Smith's son. But anyways, this is the movie that's long been talked about that brings those two together. And until recently, I had heard something about it like not really being connected to Cobra Kai, but apparently the director and writer of this movie works closely with the creators of Cobra Kai to make it all kind of fit, which makes me feel a little bit better about this.
Yeah. So apparently, like, timeline-wise, this takes place, like, post-Cobra Kai. For the trailer, we see like Jackie Chan's character from the remake, like Mr. Han. He goes to California to recruit Daniel, and then Daniel goes with him to New York from there. I don't think like this is gonna have like a lot of references to Cobra Kai or something, but it's not gonna contradict Cobra Kai.
Yeah, it's gonna kind of bring the Jackie Chan Karate Kid movie into the Miyagi-verse in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
While being kind of its own thing at the same time.
Yeah, by being its own thing, yeah. Well, hopefully it's gonna be a good movie. Yeah. I did like the trailer.
I mean, I like the Karate Kid movies. I haven't seen the Jackie Chan one. I haven't seen the Hilary Swank one, but I've seen the first three.
I didn't see the Jackie Chan remake. I didn't have any interest in it. I did watch the Hilary Swank movie. It still has nothing to do with anything, because as far as I know, Hilary Swank still hasn't appeared in anything or is planning on appearing in anything, so.
But I want to see, I think they've referenced things that have happened in the Hilary Swank movie, but not directly because Hilary Swank isn't in like Cobra Kai or anything.
Right, yeah.
But I need to go, I just need to watch those in preparation for this. I need to go and watch the Jackie Chan remake and the Hilary Swank one. But yeah, this is next Karate Kid movie. I was like a fan of the first three Karate Kid movies. I'm a big fan of Cobra Kai, so I'm definitely gonna check it out. I'm just a little bit hesitant because I kind of just wish they had just given this to the Cobra Kai guys.
Yeah, same.
You know?
It's a different team, but at least like the director of this.
At least they're talking to him.
We're talking to him, yeah.
Yeah. I just kind of feel this is gonna be kind of like a MCU Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. situation where it's kind of like one-sided, you know?
Yeah, where it's one-sided, yeah, where like one side just like takes from the other and doesn't give.
Yeah, but and the last trailer we got is just a little indie film coming out next year.
From an unknown director featuring like like
a rarely
very
mentioned character.
Obscure character I don't think anybody like has heard of.
Yeah. Superb Man?
Yeah, Superb Homelander?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
From John Knife, I believe, is the one that did this.
John Knife. Yeah, this is Superman from James Gunn. They dropped the teaser today, which is, oh my god. This is probably, no hyperbole, this is probably the best teaser for a movie I've ever seen in my life. This was amazing. And I'm not like some like giant Superman fanboy either. This is just like incredible. I've watched this like a dozen times now, and it's just full of these amazingly beautiful scenes and moments. They nailed it.
Yeah, it looks really good. It's got just loads of characters in it. That's one thing James Gunn's really good at is making a movie that just has a ton of characters in it and making it work.
Yes.
And not feel like they're just extraneous and there for like no reason. So it was a bit weird seeing, I don't know the character's name. He's one of the Green Lanterns.
Guy Gardner.
Yeah, Guy Gardner.
Played by Nathan Fillion. A lot of people.
Yeah, with that weird bowl cut.
Yeah. And the thing.
Comic accurate, but.
It's comic accurate, yeah. The thing is, like, a lot of people are mocking Nathan Fillion for like, oh, he looks stupid, he looks goofy. Yeah, that's Guy Gardner. He's supposed to look goofy. He looks goofy in the comics. That's accurate.
Yeah.
You're supposed to like be like, that's a goofy looking dude.
They're bringing the other two major Lantern characters to the DCU as well.
Yes.
With the Lanterns TV series, which is going to be kind of True Detective-esque. But they're going to start off the Lanterns in DCU with this, with him showing up in Superman. We also saw Mr. Terrific. We saw Lex Luthor, played by Nicholas Hoult.
Yes.
Lois Lane, by Rachel Brosnahan.
And James Gunn has reiterated that, like, although, like, there's these other heroes in the movie, as we saw, this is very much focused on the core trio of Superman, Lois, and Lex. That's where the focus is, and the focus doesn't shift from them to, like, being about Guy Gardner all of a sudden, you know?
Yeah, it seems like what they're doing is they're kind of taking the idea of, like, Superman being kind of a new hero.
Yeah. Well, James Gunn recently said this is, like, in the middle of Superman's career. Like, he said, like, Superman...
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah, so he said, when we enter this movie, Superman is already established. He's already a known quantity to the world. Lois already knows that he's Clark Kent. There's no discovery there. His rivalry with Lex Luthor is well established. So James Gunn basically said, we're coming into it in the middle of the story.
Okay, I thought it was going to be more like where the other heroes have been established. So it's not like Superman ushers in all this like weird characters.
That's what I thought too. That was like a big fan theory too when it was originally announced, and like rumors were saying it was going to be like a reverse Kingdom Come. But yeah, James Gunn said like, yeah, that's not the case. But it is interesting, though, like, there's a lot of things to infer from this trailer. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's obviously, like, a scene where Superman is walking, looking disgraced, while people, like, boo and throw stuff at him. There's another scene where it looks like he's being detained by the military. And then there's the scene, with,
the opening scene, he's, like, injured.
Yeah, he's injured after, like, a real bad fight. Yeah, we start the trailer with, like, a really badly injured Superman just falling,
wheezing in the snow
to the earth in the snow. He had flown to the Fortress of Solitude, and he's just like wheezing there. And he calls on Crypto, which we see Crypto for the first time, to take him home, to save him, which is cool. James Gunn said one of the things he wants to do with this movie is he wants to incorporate all the iconography that we're familiar with Superman from like the movies, from the Christopher Reeves movies. Obviously, he's got the John Williams score, but he also wants to incorporate a lot of the stuff that comics readers would know about Superman and his world that haven't been so much represented in live action that much, like Crypto, for instance, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I saw something, he said something about embracing the mythology.
Yeah, embracing the mythology, yeah. It's interesting because, we see, like, images of, like, a disgraced Superman, a Superman under containment, and that scene with Guy Gardner in the trailer, he's aiming his ring at Superman, and Superman is kind of, like, in, like, a submissive pose, like, looking like he's being detained. So it suggests to me, like, part of, like, what happens in this film is some sort of events or orchestrator happens where Superman gets blamed for something and he becomes disgraced to the point where the public turns against him and the military, and he becomes public enemy number one. And it seems like the Justice League, which is Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific and Metamorpho, are like called in to like help detain Superman and help bring him under arrest, which looks like what they're doing in that scene. And if you notice, like all the Justice League heroes are wearing like Lord Tech uniforms, so they're owned by Maxwell Lord, which is an interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it looks really interesting. I'm really curious to see how this like plays out.
Yeah, and this is going to open opposite Fantastic Four, right? They're opening up like around like the same day or something?
Around the same time, yeah. I need to see some Fantastic Four now, because like I'm incredibly hyped for Superman, and apparently it's got like 11 million views on the DC like YouTube account in 5 hours, which is insane.
Yeah.
So like
now we just gotta see
Marvel needs to drop that Fantastic Four, because like Warner Bros. Is eating their lunch right now.
I wonder if they're just gonna wait until they put out is Thunderbolts first or Cap 4 first?
Thunderbolts. Wait, no, actually Cap 4. I think Cap 4 is the next movie coming out, yes.
I wonder if they're gonna wait for Cap 4 to put out a full trailer.
Yeah, they might.
Because then they can like really focus in on their kind of cross promotion type stuff that Marvel's big into, you know? But yeah, so that is Superman, the trailer for that. You can check that out online. And that brings an end to our On Beat segment, and that leaves only full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we are going to be bidding a fond farewell to What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah.
At their 6th and final season, it concluded. We've checked that out. What do you think?
Well, I wanted to like get your opinions first before I gave my opinion. So like I was gonna ask you the same thing.
I think it's a little uneven. There's like episodes that feel kind of standalone. There's kind of this seasonal story about like them trying to, like Guillermo trying to get this job and everybody else working at the same company. And then that kind of ends on the second to last episode, and then the last episode just kind of goes with this weird thing where all of a sudden they're in the middle of just their regular day-to-day events, and all of a sudden they get like notified, okay, I guess it's over now or something, and you find out that the documentary crew has decided to leave.
Yeah.
And they're ending, and this sends, Guillermo into like an existential crisis, and it just kind of takes over as like the ending to the show, which I think is a clever way of ending the show, because you kind of forget, because the whole like mockumentary thing filming angle of this is like, been so established by like The Office and Parks and Recreation and so Modern Family and so many shows that have done this kind of angle that you kind of just forget that there's actually a crew there this whole time, that there's supposed to have been this like film crew filming them. They remind you a few times, but even still, you kind of forget of it. You kind of just don't think about it. And then it kind of brings all of that back in the last episode. But it's interesting because I think there's a lot of really good standalone episodes. I think the main seasonal plot was just kind of okay.
Yeah.
Like that whole kind of,
No, it's just kind of okay. No, I agree. There was like two main seasonal plots. There was The Office, and there was Laszlo creating his monster.
I like that storyline.
I like that storyline, yeah.
As good.
Office stuff had its moments. Especially like Tim Heidecker was like fantastic as like the boss. And I also loved what it did for like Guillermo's character, because it was basically Guillermo was frustrated with his relationship with Nandor, and then he was just like repeating that at this company with the CEO. Like CEO just became the new Nandor to like Guillermo, just like a new master.
Yeah, I think that was okay. It's just I just didn't like the plot as much. Like it had its moments, but like as a cohesive plot, like it was kind of the weakest part of the whole season, I think.
Right, and that's fair. I thought it was a pretty solid season myself. Most of the episodes were hilarious. There's like only like one episode I thought was like really bad, and that was the episode where like they were filming the show in their neighborhood, like around their house and stuff, and then they were like trying to go to war with the producers and the people making the show, and I just thought, man, this episode is not doing anything for me. This is kind of stupid. Yeah, I did like that episode. That was the only one that fell really flat for me though out of this entire season, which so I consider that like pretty solid. There's a lot of great moments and scenes in this season, like the entire episode with the vampire gangs that were going after them because the monster killed, what was his name? Like
Jerry.
Like Jerry, yeah, I almost said Gary. Because the monster killed Gary.
You just made a Parks and Recreation joke without realizing.
Yeah. Which was like a total riff on like the Warriors, which is even more hilarious because Colin Robinson directly references the Warriors at the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, it was funny how as they're like running away from the vampires, and the vampires are all chasing them because of Jerry being killed.
Yeah.
Every time they're going through like a cemetery, it's a cemetery vampires.
Yeah, it's a cemetery vampires.
All these like vampire cliques. It was funny. Yeah. The barista vampires or whatever when they went to like a coffee shop.
Yeah, like all these like ridiculous things. It's funny because like it's the only episode where they had like a gathering of vampires that didn't like feature like a bunch of celebrity cameos, but there is one at the end of the episode. It's Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah. Alexander Skarsgård.
Alexander Skarsgård, yeah, at the end of it, who played Eric in True Blood.
It would have been fun if he had Bill Skarsgård, because he's playing a vampire now, and he played one before as well.
Oh, yeah, it would have been funny.
Bill Skarsgård's Nosferatu, but he was also in a TV series called Hemlock Grove, where he played a vampire.
Right.
So that would have been kind of funny. They could have done something funny with that. Also because Alexander and Bill Skarsgård are brothers, so that would have been like a funny thing too. But they have Alexander Skarsgård.
I loved the Nandor's War episode too, where like everybody thought like Nandor had like gone crazy. I was talking to mannequins. I loved at the end of the episode, towards the end of the episode, where like Nandor was to like the cameras. He's like, I thought like the mannequins were my soldiers. What the fuck?
I love the railroad episode.
Yeah, the railroad episode
with Sean needing to get a new job, and just kind of I like that they're playing on, because they had the episode a few seasons ago where they had been hypnotizing him so many times that he just had gone kind of loopy. And I love that they've kind of kept that up, where Sean's just like so mentally damaged from all of their hypnotizing that he just can't function properly.
Yeah, he can no longer function properly anymore.
Yeah.
I love that. It's funny, in the second to last episode, which was the end of the Office storyline, at the beginning of it, Laszlo's talking about his monster he created. I just loved it so out of pocket, because he just, for no reason, he just goes, yeah, my monster is smarter than Nandor. And Nandor is just goes, what the fuck?
Nandor taking strays, yeah.
Yeah, Nandor taking strays. Yeah, I just love that, because it's so out of pocket. Like, a lot of great moments. I want to focus in on my thoughts on the finale. I thought, at first I was kind of, but then I thought about it, oh no, actually, it's actually pretty brilliant, because I just love that it's just continuing on as a regular episode of the series, and they're just talking about all the same bullshit they've been talking about. Laszlo's just talking about about his monster and stuff, like normal, and it's like the same bullshit that's just been going on.
And Nandor comes in with the same line about you need to be more hygienic about the dead bodies and stuff.
Yeah, business as usual, and then it just ends. It just ends abruptly. And like everybody is like fine with it except for Guillermo, who has like a crisis about it. I just like love it when Guillermo like runs in there and he runs upstairs and like Colin Robinson just says, "Bye, bitch."
They had the running gag of Colin Robinson like coming back over and over again with like new pieces of advice that are like basically taken from motivational posters and shit.
Oh yeah.
He just keeps coming back and then Nandor and Guillermo are like talking again and he like walks back into the room and he says, "Actually, I had another one."
Colin like intentionally draining them, which you haven't seen him do in a while actually.
Yeah.
Which was great.
There's also the great bit in the middle of the episode they did like the Newhart ending.
Yeah, they did a parody of the Newhart ending. Yeah, which was like the audience, like we were supposed to be hypnotized into seeing that, which was hilarious. Yeah, they did a riff of Newhart ending and they kind of like, they soft gave fans what they wanted, which was to see Guillermo and Nandor together in that fake ending. But like, it doesn't actually happen in the show.
Yeah.
Which I think is the right call because things never progressed to the point where like that would have been realistic at that point.
Yeah. I did like the way they ended it with Guillermo lying to Nandor about going off on his own and that you wouldn't see me again. And then he comes back and he's like, "Oh no, I just did that for the show so they could have closure on the show."
Yes. Yeah, that was great. Cause I was like, really, oh wow, they're actually gonna leave it like that? That's crazy. Like the credits came up and they're like, "No, it's like," I was like, "Oh, okay." And then he jumps in the coffin with Nandor and then Nandor pulls the lever because like he built the secret lair after all. So that was a fantastic way to end it.
That brings an interesting thing up, which is that, and I've noticed it before, that what we do in the shadows for a comedy has always had like a very fantastic look to it.
Yes.
Like it always had a very distinct look. There's always like, there's very specific lighting where like at one moment you can look at a character and you'll see like, oh, he's being lit from the background with green. He's being lit in the foreground with like purple. And then he's being lit on the side with like red. And they do so much with like just like the colors and the presentations and kind of creating the motif of the look of the show is so like specific. You don't see that often with comedies. It's very rare. That usually comedies, they just focus on the writing and they don't really have like a very complete visual aesthetic. But like what we do in the shadows, since it began, has had like a very complete visual aesthetic. And it's done certain things like better than like anything pretty much. Like I think Ghost in what we do in the shadows look better than in anything I've ever seen. Not just comedies, like period.
Yeah.
Like I think the way the ghosts look in what we do in the shadows looks better than they do in any of the Ghostbusters movies. I think they look better than in any of the Supernatural. They look better than in any horror film I've seen. The way they do the lighting that emits from them and stuff. It's like,
oh yeah, like what I've appreciated about what we do in the shadows is they never tried to make like the monsters themselves look goofy. Like they can have goofy personalities, they can be silly, but they don't like look. They look properly like monsters. You know?
They have a complete visual aesthetic. Like they do it right, you know?
Yes.
They don't go like, oh well, it's just a comedy, so we don't have to make it that accurate. It's like, no, there's so much attention to detail. And I think I was noticing it even more this season than I normally do. Maybe just because it's coming to an end and I was thinking about it more. But there's like several times where there's just pretty complex shots and things that they didn't have to go that hard, and they did, you know? I mean, how about the demon bursting into the room through fire when they summon him? And then when he goes to leave, he's like, oh, well, now I will go back from where I came. And he just starts walking away. And they're like, oh, that was kind of anticlimactic. And then he rips off his horns and explodes into blood.
Yeah.
It's like you didn't even have to do that. You already had the joke about the anticlimactic scene with him leaving. You didn't have to go that extra step, and they did.
Oh, they did, yeah. And it was fantastic.
Yeah, it was like great. Amazing. And then they did it again with Nandor and Guillermo going down that tunnel underneath the coffin, you know, at the coffin dropping down into the secret lair or whatever. That was like a really cool effect shot. They didn't need to do that, you know?
Oh, no, yeah, they did not need that. But yeah.
Another example is they did the Airbnb episode. And through the whole thing, they kept thinking that this woman next door that ran this Airbnb was a changeling.
Well, they didn't think she was the changeling. They thought the couple renting it were changelings.
Well, they thought that she was one of the couples renting it. Like, they thought they were all the same.
Yeah, like, one of the Ray gags is Nandor and Nadja couldn't figure out that it was an Airbnb and like different people were renting it. And the whole reason they thought they were changelings was because there were different people coming in and out of the place constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Nandor tells a story about how he had dated a changeling, and then the changeling turned into a possum, and then he still dated it for like a few years or something, and then just couldn't do it anymore or something.
Yeah.
It was just kind of this funny, like, offhand story. And then that episode ends with them, like, making peace with the Airbnb owner, and she, like, brings them food, and they're, like, all chilling out at her Airbnb, and as she's leaving, you see her transform into a possum.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a touch that you didn't need that. Like, the episode was complete. You already had, all the jokes were already done, you know? You already had it all done. And then you didn't have to call back the Nandor story and what he said offhand and, like, turn that into what was actually happening there. You know, you didn't have to go that far, but they did. And it was great. And they also did the same thing again with, like, there's a character that I was really hoping that they would bring back this season, and they kind of didn't until the last episode. And I say character, but it's like a character played by one of the characters, and that's Jackie Daytona, who was there was a great episode in a past season where Laszlo, like, ran away and was pretending to took on this mantle of this character, Jackie Daytona, from, as he would say, from Arizona.
Yeah. Because he was hiding out from another vampire who's
Mark Hamill, yeah.
Yeah, who portrayed by Mark Hamill, yeah.
And I'm like, I really hope they bring back Jackie Daytona for an episode, but there wasn't, like, really a place for it. But then they showed that this was the first documentary crew that filmed them.
I loved it, yeah, because they were like, oh yeah, there was another documentary filmed of them in the 50s, and they brought back some of the gags, like Jackie Daytona and stuff, but it was like under the guise of, they've been repeating themselves for 50 years, like...
Yeah, it's got like that thematic angle of it, where it's not just like, oh, it's funny they did this before, it's like, there's a whole point to it, which is this idea of them being repetitive, and this kind of monotonous repetition, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And they kind of made that like a theme of the show when they closed out. So I think that was just really cool. I think the thing that makes What We Do in the Shadows like an absolute classic, what makes it like better than just being like a really funny show that we watch and then forget about, is its commitment to just going that extra step.
Yes.
You know, like I said, they have the scene where the demon says like, oh, okay, well, I'm off, and they leave, and they're like, oh, that's anticlimactic. Any other show could have just ended there on that gag. But no, he pulls off his horns and explodes into blood, and it's like what was probably a very expensive effect shot, you know? That was completely unnecessary, but like adds so much to this like bigger image of it, you know?
Oh yeah, it adds so much because like it gives you a visual and it gets a reaction from you. It's something that you don't expect.
Yeah,
you know?
It's that like extra little slap you weren't expecting.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, and they did that a bunch of times in this season, especially in the finale with the way it came to a close. But yeah, and it was sweet too. Like, you know, the Nandor Guillermo relationship is very sweet.
Oh yeah, it's very sweet, and I love the way they handled it in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
To where like I think like Guillermo and Nandor had a good ending.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this season. I thought this was like one of their strongest seasons. Even though like the narrative arc was kind of weak, there were still some like great moments in that too, though. Like the whole episode.
Did you catch the Office joke?
Yeah.
With Joel, with Colin's friend Joel?
Yeah.
Colin said like, we used to work together, we pushed paper.
Oh yeah.
Making a direct reference to the fact that both of them were like kind of background players in The Office.
Kind of sucked that was from my least liked episode of the season, but it's the way it is. Because like, even though like I thought like Colin's storyline in that episode was better, I still wasn't crazy about it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though like, yeah, it was fun to see.
It was all worth it because you had the scene with Colin making out with Nadja, trying to pretend to be a couple.
Oh yeah.
Like way over the top.
Oh, it was crazy because like, I love the way they did it because Nadja just like way over the top just like makes out with Colin and stuff like out of nowhere. And then like later on Colin like tries to initiate making out with her and she's just like, ew. Like, and Colin's just like, just confused. The only thing that was saddest thing from this season that we didn't get like a return appearance of Simon the Devious.
Oh yeah, that was sad.
Yeah, that's sad.
We need a spin-off series for Simon the Devious.
We do, absolutely.
We did get the witch's hat.
We got the witch's hat, reference, yeah.
But yeah, What We Do in the Shadows ended on a strong note. It was good. I'm kind of surprised because when Jermaine Clement left the show as showrunner, after I think it was after season 2, I was kind of nervous that there'd be like a big quality dip, but it really didn't. It really just kind of held together throughout and managed to end strong. And like I said, it's bittersweet because I think it's a good final episode. It's not like the best final episode of a comedy in the way that like The Good Place. The final episode of The Good Place is just an absolute masterpiece, you know?
Right. No,
but it was just a really solid final season that continued to live up to what the show was all about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I love the way they ended it because the way they ended it is unique to the show and like no other show could like get away with it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's my final thoughts.
Yeah, we need like a spin-off or something because I'm glad the show came to an end while it was still good. I'm glad it didn't just crumble and then end, you know? That would have been really sad. But I'm just not ready to let go of, it's not the characters so much, although I am sad to have the characters gone, but just that kind of the world and the style of the show I'm not ready to let go of. So I hope they do like a spin-off or something. I know that there is a spin-off show in New Zealand.
Yes. About the cop characters from the film.
Yeah. That's related to the film, but that's all the same universe as the show.
Right, yeah.
But like, I'd really like something that's kind of a spin-off of this show. Like I jokingly said to you, I said it as a joke, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. Like a Simon the Devious show, you know?
No, yeah, Nick Kroll is like hilarious and he's great in that role, so yeah.
Yeah, it'd be funny to see him as this kind like, cause you see the other side, cause he's always the one that's so put together as he's taking on Laszlo and to get the hat and stuff and has so much focus on making himself look so impressive all the time and stuff, but it would be interesting to see the other side of that, you know?
Oh yeah, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, or just, you know, the necromancer character, I don't know. There's so many like little loose ends or something that were like awesome in the show that like it would be fun to see like get picked up on again.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's What We Do in the Shadow. Sad to see it go, but it ended on a good note. And we are going to be gone for the next 2 weeks. We're taking off Christmas and New Year's, so we're going to be back in 3 weeks. And we should be doing our Best of 2024 awards, where we talk about different categories and awards for, you know, like Best TV Show and Best Performer and the Best Story and all those things, covering all the kind of stuff that we cover on this show. We're going to be doing that when we come back in 3 weeks, with the caveat that unless Nintendo reveals the Switch successor. If Nintendo reveals the Switch successor before that,
then we gotta talk about that.
We'll talk about that, and then we'll do the Best of 2024 the next week after that. So as things stand now, in 3 weeks we're gonna return with the Best of 2024. But like as I said, if the Switch successor is revealed, then that's gonna kind of take priority. But until then, thank you everybody for listening. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Fox a Hero. You can check out our website, thetotalscreen.com. If you go to our website and open up a container store for any of our podcast episodes, you'll find all the relevant links to our social accounts, our RSS feed, for the podcast, all of that's there. You can also subscribe to our podcast through your favorite podcast plan of choice, like Apple Podcasts or Pocket Cast, and the entire backlog of our podcast, as well as additional content, is available on our YouTube channel. So check that out as well. Thank you everybody for listening.
Good night.
And happy holidays.
And happy holidays.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.